Where are we now? You were also asked, you were also worked on Krull, X-Men, Star Wars, Alien 3, Dungeons and Dragons, Visionary. Could you please give some insight into those experiences and what you remember from working on those lines? They were varied. It's never the job, it's the people that you work with. The Alien 3 was not in the toy company field. It was what we call garage kits, and that was done for Dark Horse Comics under Rob Bowen. Is it Rob Bowen? I think it is, yeah. And all good experiences, I have to say. Star Wars, I did some heads for 12-inch dolls, and that was under the Kenner label after Kenner was absorbed by Hasbro. So I don't have any particular cogent insights at the moment on these things, but if I think of something, I'll let you know. X-Men, that was Toy Biz. There were two lines of X-Men, and there were also Marvel, and they came under two different outsourcing companies. And the second company was very much stronger in its vision than the first company, so got to work out with both companies. What do you teach? Thank you for asking. A few years ago, I had been asked to come in and create half of an existing art school that was building a new building, and that was the Stevenson Academy at Oyster Bay. Previous to that, I used to instruct other professionals. And so there were other people who were working in the toy field and related fields, and because I had a tremendous variety of experience in different fields, that also allowed me to bring in a lot of materials from one area that would not be seen in another area. So I had the pleasure of sharing that information with some professionals. With the amateurs, which is, in the best sense of the word, those who do it out of love, I did it for money, but I love making the money, so that made me an amateur professional. What can I say about teaching? Well, instructing is more like what I do. I think students teach me and I instruct them. And I do this currently on Long Island in Dix Hills at a school called the Art League of Long Island. So you can Google my name, Bill Merklein, and look me up on the faculty list, and you will see that I teach fine art painting, oil painting, and I also teach horse sculpting, horse anatomy. It's a very specialized field. There are very few people in sculpting field who can teach animal anatomy, and I've learned it in order to do my own miniature figures, so I'm just passing that on right now. So I do that on Tuesdays. I have a class in the afternoon between 1 and 4, and an evening class, which is a very interesting class because it combines both painters and sculptors in the same room. And they learn from each other. When I'm demonstrating painting, the sculptors come to watch, and when I'm demonstrating sculpting, the painters come and watch. So that's a class that goes between 7 and 10 at the Art League. I'm in Studio 4, except in the better weather, then during the day, I'm out doing a plein air class, which is a fancy French word for outdoor painting, as nude is a fancy French word for being naked. Okay, so that's what we do. We use Italian and French words to sound more important than we really are. All right. If you have a chance, feel free to come, and I'll be delighted to meet you. Come to the evening class. The school is basically empty. I'd love to learn how to sculpt. What kind of schooling, classes, courses do you recommend taking to become a toy sculptor? Are there any sculpting techniques, tips, tricks that you think anyone who sculpts or wants to sculpt should know? Is there something that you would really like to sculpt but haven't had an opportunity to do yet? Okay, well, that's a long-winded question. I started sculpting somewhere between the ages of 5 and 8 because at that time in my life I lived across the street from Pratt Institute, an art and engineering school in Brooklyn. And I was a school mascot, and I got my first art materials from those students. They were very generous. And the clay that they gave me to play with was Roma plasticine, which is not a clay for children. It is a clay for, college students. And I had a wonderful time with that. That was my favorite toy. As a matter of fact, it was my only toy. I really didn't need any other toys. Also, when I was a kid, we had wonderful things called double features. You could go to a Saturday matinee, and you'd have new films every week because Hollywood was still producing tons of motion pictures. And the B films would very often be films about cowboys and Indians or films about pirates. And so I would see a movie, go home, and actually sculpt a pirate ship, and or sculpt figures representing horses and riders and maybe a stockade fort. I remember particularly in, I believe it was 1955, the first of the sword and sandal films, which became a big trend in the 60s. The international films that had international stars. This film came out, and it's available today on video, and it's called Helen of Troy. And it literally had a cast of thousands, not CGI, real human beings. And so I remember taking 2 weeks to sculpt hundreds of little clay Trojans and little clay Greeks, and then building the wall and fighting the Trojan Wars for several weeks. That was great fun. So that was a tremendous influence in my life. To take your question seriously, in New York, toward the end of the 1980s, the Fashion Institute of Technology, which is on the west side of New York in the 20s, created a toy department to teach people just this very thing, to work within the toy industry. But this was also happening at a time when the toy industry was beginning to dry up. More and more work was being sent over to China. And I think even today, there is very little that is actually done in this country. And you might get a call from a small startup company, but you just don't hear from the big companies anymore. So what sculpting techniques? Well, I demonstrated a little bit or talked a little bit about that, but start out with clay and start out with your imagination. And comic books are an incredible influence. When I was talking about Justin a little while ago, I was remembering that those kids at that time were copying comic book characters. And that was terrific, because even though as a child I was influenced by fine art and wanted to go in that direction, we don't have much of art education anymore on any level. And the result is that kids pick up a pencil and paper to copy something from a comic book. It's a wonderful way of getting started, and they'll learn important skills. And if they want to take that further and take it other than comic books, well, at least they've gotten launched, and that's wonderful. So what else is there to say about this? There are no tricks. I wish there were tricks. You really have to work very hard to learn anything. And if you do a good painting or a good sculpture, it's because you put the time in and taught yourself how to do it. In the end, even if you are working with teachers, working with instructors, it's the work that teaches you more than anything else. And so just get out and play and enjoy it, and be frustrated, and just continue on, just keep going for it, and you'll get it. I used to be called upon to talk to kids at classrooms, because somebody in the neighborhood would have a teacher friend or something like that, and then I would always be working on a G.I. Joe, so I could bring in a sculpting master to show them what they would be seeing a year from now. And I would end that talk with a little bit of advice that I think I can also share with you here. And I used to say to the kids, find the thing that you love to do, and then find an idiot to pay you to do it. And I think the other piece of advice is that pursue the things in your life that you love and be so damn good that you can't be ignored. That'll help a lot, but you have to work for it. All right, we're coming to the last questions. Oh, this is so funny. Who can beat Batman? That's not the funny line. Okay, I don't know. Batman is psychologically disturbed. I think his psychologist might have an edge on him. Here's the last question, and if you hear laughter other than mine, that is my camera operator, Carrie Wheeler, who I thank very much for being here. What's your favorite ice cream flavor? The last question. Well,
Peach cobbler.
well, that's what we had. Thank you, Carrie. That was what we had this evening. Peach cobbler. It changes from time to time, but thank you. Listen, I can't think of anything more to say except that the Hasbro experience was wonderful. Everybody that I worked with at Hasbro were terrific people, very intelligent people, and I didn't know how wonderful they were until I got to work with a few other people in the field. And those are very special people, and I hope that they might get to see this and know that I have never taken them for granted. And also like to say thank you to Gary Head again and Josh Carlson for setting up this experience that I might be able to share some memories of my time working with Hasbro. Superior company, always on the ball to give the best product that they could give, and I hope they are still doing the same today. So that should just about wrap it up. Thank you.